Funding for this program was provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.
Laura Alexander Leach was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, to a family of comfortable means. Her father, who had lettered in football at Rice University, taught her the ins and outs of the game at an early age and imparted a love of sports that would always stay with her. After earning a business administration degree from LSU, Laura headed off for the world of work. She met and married an up-and-coming lawyer named Buddy Leach, settled into the life of a politician's wife, and immediately engaged in community involvement that would become her lifelong hallmark.
Early in our marriage, she became very involved in resurrecting a small church in my hometown of Leesville. And when we left, the church was up and going, and is still continuing.
Even while raising her 3 children and overseeing her business interests, her activism never flagged.
Laura Leach is an individual with boundless energy. Energy that I've never witnessed in anyone else that I have met. She has a positive attitude about everything that she does, and she becomes a champion of the causes that she believes in.
And the causes have been many. The Calcasieu Area Boy Scouts Council, Children's Miracle Network, the Nature Conservancy, Prevent Child Abuse Louisiana, the Lake Charles Symphony. As a leading arts patron, Laura chaired the event that brought Luciano Pavarotti to Baton Rouge in his only Louisiana appearance. And she arranged for a performance by Metropolitan Opera star Paul Groves in her hometown. Whether it's Dancing with the Stars to benefit a nonprofit organization or rooting for her beloved LSU Tigers, Laura Leach is a doer. As past chair and 16-year member of the LSU Board of Supervisors, she has worked tirelessly to improve education in Louisiana.
She's one of these people who is very unassuming, and you might imagine that she's a person of sort of ordinary capabilities, but what you discover very quickly is that she's a person of extraordinary capabilities. She has the ability to have vision. She has the ability to execute complicated things. She has the ability to stick her ground under great difficulties.
She'll go to the mat for someone, and people don't realize that about her. They think she's, a very soft-spoken and sweet Southern belle, but I think she's really a steel magnolia.
When I first met her, I knew she was special. I knew that there was no one quite like her. She's one in a million, too good to be true, too good to be true. And she's a Louisiana legend, a very deserving Louisiana legend.
In reflecting on a lifetime filled with love from family, admiration from friends, and tribute from peers, we could not agree more. Hello, I'm Beth Courtney. Welcome to Louisiana Legends. We are here in the beautiful home of Laura Leach, who is our Louisiana legend. And Laura, it is such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you. I always enjoy seeing you, Beth, and I enjoy your programs very, very much.
I've just been amazed reading about all the variety of things you've done in your career. Now, I know about LSU.
Yes.
You are Miss LSU, or Mrs. LSU. Growing up in Lake Charles, did you have a vision of where you wanted to go or be? Were you a tomboy? Were you an outdoor sort of person or not?
Not really, and very different than I am now, actually. I was very shy, extremely shy when I was growing up. But my dad was very much the outdoorsman and used to take me with him. So I guess right there started my appreciation for the environment, though I really did not get into that until I was much older. And maybe that happens to all of us, that we become more aware at the older we get and how we need to preserve. But my grandfather, whom I did not get to know, unfortunately, he died in April and I was born in September, was quite a gentleman for this area. He came at 21 years of age from England to help his father and his father's syndicate, who had bought some land in this area, and he went to work for the railroad, but boarded at Mother Bradley's boarding house. And Mother Bradley had some daughters, And one of those daughters he married and had 3 children. He stayed here in southwest Louisiana. And everything I've read about him or know about him, he was quite into preservation. He planted so many of the oak trees that we see around here. He purchased this property that we're on and always had a vision of living out here. And he loved to play golf. He loved people. He served on the police jury. He was the one that actually got the information and got someone who spoke French to go with him and help purchase the land to build the Creole Highway that leads to Cameron. There was no highway at that time.
Well, you are certainly a daughter of Louisiana and feel attached to it. Did you ever think about living anywhere else, or did you always want to be in Louisiana?
We have lived other places.
I know you've lived other places.
Yes, we have lived other places, and actually this has been home for us, and Louisiana has been very, very good to us. And we feel that we need to take care of what has been given to us and also to give back.
In education, were you a good student?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't?
No, I wasn't.
You're telling your children and grandchildren to be good students now, right?
To be good students,
yes. But you went off to LSU and you were a business major.
I was, and I went in when I was 16 years old. And going to LSU, when at that time, that was in 1956, was a very different experience than it is for the youngsters today. Number one, there were 5 men to every woman on campus. Now, I had grown up with some parents that were a bit strict. They weren't terrible, but they were pretty strict, and we were only allowed to go out on weekends. And I got down there, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven with all those. And we had a wonderful freshman year. And it was very mandatory for all the men to be in ROTC. So for the first 2 years, and that was very, very much a part of LSU. And when they would all parade, of course, the girls would go out and watch them parade. And
although the freshman boys had shaved heads.
They had shaved heads, went to the first ball game in their pajamas.
Right.
You know, it was just we went to football games dressed to the nines.
With corsages.
With corsages, with gloves, with umbrellas, with hats. And nowadays, you know,
right.
we all, I think, dress like we should to go into a stadium.
We know that you're chairman of the LSU Board of Supervisors, and you've done awfully important things, and we want to talk about those. But I understand you are also a big sports fan. You've been known to, like, even boo.
Never the teams. I might get upset with a referee every once in a while. Actually, I love football. And let's go back to my father, my father was from Georgia. And he went to Rice University, we think, on an athletic scholarship. He never talked too awfully much about himself. But he played football, he played basketball, he ran track and did the field events. And he lettered in all those things, got a degree in engineering, and then went on and got a law degree. But he loved the outdoors, and he loved Rice University, and he loved to go to the football games. Well, Mother would go sometimes. My brother really didn't care about it, so he took me the rest of the times, and so he taught me the game. And I really do understand it and like the strategy of it. And, of course, there's nothing like Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night, and it's an event.
Exactly.
It's an event.
Exactly.
But I also enjoy other sports and never was very good at them myself. But I've really become interested in basketball and Lady Tiger basketball. And mainly that was because of the coach, Sue Gunner, that was at LSU. And she and I had a common bond through Alzheimer's. She was caring for her mother, who had Alzheimer's. And when I met Sue, we had just had the care of my mother's sister who had never married, and she had Alzheimer's for 9 years. And she had just passed away. So Sue and I had a connection there, but I really enjoyed.
Louisiana Legend, by the way.
And now I'm this huge Lady Tiger fan.
And I understand, and from a position of authority on the LSU Board of Supervisors too, you suggested that perhaps other sports should have salary increases as well.
Yes, we needed to do that.
Yes.
It was, yes, we had to make that move. So.
Well, let's talk about
and contracts.
Absolutely.
And contracts.
Certainly, as you graduated in business administration, were you involved in your family's business and intimately for early on?
Not early on. I actually thought about it, talked to my uncle who was president, and they had ran a very small business at that time. So I worked here for a while. I worked for an attorney for a while. Then I left and went to Houston and lived for 2 years working for a building materials company. And I was sort of office manager for 6 men. And that was an experience, and I really enjoyed it very much. And then, in the meantime, I had met Buddy.
A young man from Vernon
Parish, right. And we got engaged during the time I was living in Houston and got married. And then I moved to Vernon Parish from here.
And was that a difficult adjustment, or it's not that far?
It's not that far. It was, there were some things that were difficult about it, moving to a much smaller town and all, but it was wonderful. It was great. And during that time, actually, before we got married, he had decided to start into politics. Now, let me back up just a minute. The night we met, he told me he was going into politics.
And what did you think?
I thought, oh dear. I had not come from a political family at all, and wasn't really sure about this. And I told him that night that when I got married, I was going to have a great big wedding with all of my friends at the rehearsal dinner and everything. And as I said in a political speech once, we did and we did. We did both those things. But he started running for office before we got married. He ran for mayor of Leesville against a 3-term incumbent and only lost by 12 votes. And this was my first entrance into politics, and to hear how people sometimes decide to vote. And I had a lady call and said if I'd known he was going to do so well, I would have voted for him. And that really infuriated me. And I said, that's not why we vote. Right. That is not why we vote. Now, I know you're not supposed to tell people things like that, but I did. And after we did get married, he lost that election. And it was really a blessing in disguise, I think, because knowing Buddy, when he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. Had he won the mayor's race, he would not have run for the legislature because it came up during the time he would have been mayor. And knowing how he is, he would not have made that race. But since he had lost, he did make it. And at that time, there were 2 representatives to be elected to represent 3 parishes. I believe I've got that right. That was a long time ago. And Buddy, there were 5 that ran. Buddy won first election. And then there was a runoff for the second representative, who ended up being Holman Jones out of Oakdale.
Did you go then with him to Baton Rouge?
When the children were small. And by the way, Mary, who you've met, was born between the time that he won and the time he was sworn in. So all the time we were campaigning that first big election, I was expecting Mary. And it was an interesting time, our first baby. And as you know, she's got political aspirations, so that might have made a difference. I don't know.
You think early on?
Early on. But while the children were small, I would go with him. And then as they got into school, we would stay at home until school was out, and then we'd go down and stay. We had a lot of fun with the families were all together, and the children all knew each other, and we would stay various places in Baton Rouge.
Was it hard being a political wife? Was it meaning, you have to look adoringly at your husband on various dioceses as they're giving speeches because people are paying attention to you all the time? Or what was that like for you?
I never did feel that, Beth. I thought Buddy was very, very good at what he did, and I really did listen to what he said so I could learn. I've learned a lot from him. A great deal. I've learned not only about politics, but I've learned a great deal about giving back, and from him. He's been a great teacher for me.
Well, you've been married how long now?
44 years.
That's a remarkable in this day and age, isn't it?
It is.
And you have now beautiful children and 9 grandchildren?
9 grandchildren, right. There are 3 living in Baton Rouge, 6 here in Lake Charles. And we're very close to all of them, and they're wonderful.
Well, let's talk about your time. You were appointed by a Democrat to the LSU Board of Supervisors and then reappointed by a Republican.
That's correct.
Now, how did you accomplish that?
I really don't know. I would like to think they thought I was doing a good job. I was one of the few women on the board. Let's talk about how it really is.
Yeah.
And I think they needed women. You know, we need more women. You know, the university's made up predominantly of women, probably 55%. And it's not reflected so much in your boards and administration and all. But I would hope it was something I had done, but I was appointed by a Democrat, so I had reappointed by a Republican, reappointed by the next Democrat. And so I'm in my 17th year of service.
Tell me how you feel about LSU, about the whole concept of a flagship, the leading university of the state. How important is it?
I think it's very important. And I feel like the public university is the answer to education for so many people. And I feel that we at LSU are accomplishing so many things. We have so many outstanding people that teach out there. We have so many outstanding students that go to school out there. When I was chairman of the board in '96, my legacy, if you will, I felt like we spent all of our time, this was before the public hospitals came, but I felt like we spent all of our time talking about finances and bricks and mortar. And it's really about the education of students. So every meeting we would pick one of us to do the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I said, let's start inviting on a rotating basis from the various campuses youngsters, whoever the chancellor should choose to bring, to come, and they can do the pledge and the invocation, and then let's invite them to speak to us. And for the most part, this is wonderful to listen to them, and for the most part, they will come and tell us how much they enjoy their university, whichever one it is, or their college. But on occasion, you will have them say something very, very outstanding to you. And one was a young lady from Alexandria who was a single parent working, and she finished her associate degree or a 2-year degree, and she told us, she says, I beg you to make Alexandria a 4-year institution. I cannot leave to complete my education, and I need to complete my education. And I never forgot that young woman. So when the issue came up, I was right there supporting LSUA, and I was at the legislature when the vote came because I felt like it was that important. We had a hole in the state where we were not taking care of the needs educationally of people, and it was up around Alexandria. And it mainly was because of that young woman who was president of the student body. And so, you know, they if you listen to them, they'll tell you all kinds. If you want to know if we're doing a good job, ask a student. They will tell you.
In addition to your focus and energy and attention to education, you have been such a big supporter of the arts. And I recall one of my favorite memories of all time was Luciano Pavarotti coming to Louisiana. How did that happen?
Well, I was working with Lil Veal at Samaritan House, and I was chairman of her board. And even though we had left and moved back here, she kept using me as chairman. And she called me up one morning and she said, guess who's going to come do a benefit for us? And I said, who, Lil? And she said, Luciano Pavarotti. And I said, come on, Lil. You know.
Right.
She said, I'm serious. She sent him an email. And the next thing she knew, she got a call from Tibor Rudis, who is the agent for Luciano, who was. And they said, we're coming to check out Baton Rouge and to talk to you all. So I went over and we met with them. And we actually, through Tibor Rudis, got in touch with a young woman in California at the San Diego Opera. She flew to Baton Rouge and worked with us and taught us how to actually work with these people. They were wonderful. Everything they told us they expected of us is exactly what they expected of us.
Well, that was a wonderful occasion. Yeah. But of course, closer to home, our own opera star, Paul Groves from Lake Charles.
Yes.
I think you have some Padres, some ladies who are very dynamic in Lake Charles who make sure things happen, right?
We
for
do.
Paul?
We do. We have.
You have a team of friends.
We do. And when we did, Paul is so wonderful, and he's so kind and generous with his talent. And I had talked with Robert Grayson at LSU, and he wanted to bring LSU Opera to Lake Charles. And I said, we'll do that. And so I spoke to my neighbor, Sissy Vallone, and she says, I've got this group of friends called, we play Bolivia. I don't believe they've ever played Bolivia. Maybe they've started a game, never finished. But they are all very well-trained young, they love it, I call them young ladies. But there's not an Indian in the group. They're all chiefs. And so we asked them if they would help us. And also we had another friend who's now deceased, Nancy Crow. Mm-hmm. And Sissy and Nancy and I were the three that headed it up. And then the Bolivia group worked with us. And everyone had an assignment. Everyone did their assignment. And we presented LSU Opera, Carmen, with Paul singing the lead.
And sold out the entire Civic Center.
Sold it out. On a Sunday afternoon, we had a traffic jam downtown at the Civic Center, and it wasn't a truck pull. It was opera. It was opera, and it was wonderful. And we did a dinner afterwards where we sold tables. And as a result, we were able to pay all of our expenses and give a large scholarship to McNeese in Paul's father's name, and a large scholarship to LSU in Paul's name.
So LSU, arts, important education, sports. Also, we talked a little bit earlier about the environment, and you have been on the Nature Conservancy and very concerned about that. Why is that so important to you now?
I think it has to be important to all of us. I think we have to be aware of the surroundings around us, and mainly what God has given us, and He expects us to take care of it. But when you see what's happening with our coastline particularly, and that we're losing so much of it every day, we as a state of Louisiana, we as a nation of America, need to be aware of this. And we're losing so much, not only in Louisiana, but all over the world. And it's very, very important for the future generation.
You were on the Recovery Authority as well. So
I was.
You spent a lot of time with that. Was that a meaningful experience?
That was a difficult experience for me. I just never felt that we really were getting to what we needed to do. And I thought it was a necessary thing, but maybe it was just me. I want to get it done. I want to do it. I want to get it done. Right.
So looking at the future, you've done some wonderfully exciting things. You've made investments in all areas of the state. What do you look forward to in the future?
You know, I have a wonderful life, and I just look forward to continuing with our business, which we're very fortunate to have, and our son is now taking over from his dad, but Buddy and I are still both active with it. And I hope, I don't know how much longer I can serve on the LSU board, but that will not matter. I will continue to be interested in what's going on with education, not only on the university level, but on all levels of education. I feel that this is our answer in the world, and certainly in the state of Louisiana. And I formed a 501c3 with a friend several years ago called Education First Louisiana. Purposes were twofold. One is to get the public to understand how important funding of education is. And secondly, for them in turn to turn to their legislators and get them to understand how important. Obviously, we haven't done that well with it, but we're still fighting this fight and feel that education is your answer, and if we turn our interest to education, everything else will fall in line.
I think you're helping the messages coming through. We hope that it pans out in the future. We thank you for all the good work you've done in Louisiana, and I thank all of you for joining us on this edition of Louisiana Legends. I'm Beth Courtney. Good evening.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org. Funding for this program was provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.